Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1445B, and today's date is December 11th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, The World is About to Change, and those who are sleeping better wake up. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we've been talking about how the cabal, how their entire system is falling apart, and as we move towards the end of this year, we've been discussing how they're going to be pushing events, and they're going to fire everything they have right now to try to shut down what has been happening, because they're losing ground everywhere, and they know it's a matter of time before everything completely falls apart and they're completely wiped out. And we can see already that they're going to be firing everything. I'm talking about Russian collusion. Even though it's a non-starter, they'll be throwing that out still to try to get something going. They'll be bringing up women who have accused Trump of sexual harassment. We're already seeing that happen. And 9 women have come forward. And of course, what they're doing right now is they're using what has happened to other individuals, and they're going to try to do the same thing to Trump. Now, maybe he did do this, maybe he didn't, because if he did, he's in big trouble, and other people had to step down, and they're going to ask him to step down. So right now, Trump is out there saying that all these individuals are lying. There is no truth to it whatsoever. The White House was out there saying, listen, we went through all of what they've said, and we can see from everything they said, there was no evidence whatsoever that any of this has happened. Now, again, the corporate media, they're going to push this as hard as they possibly can. They're going to continually bring up these women. No new charges were thrown at Trump right now. They're just rehashing everything that they said before. And we see right now that they're trying to do the same thing that happened to Al Franken, that happened to all the individuals that have stepped down in Hollywood. And we have to see how far they're going to take this, and if any of it is true. The corporate media is out there, and they're saying, listen, we see other politicians, media figures, entertainment executives, businessmen. They've been forced to leave their jobs over accusations of sexual harassment, and now we have accusations from 9 different women, and Trump should do the same. Now, the group includes Jessica Leeds, who said Trump groped and kissed her on an airplane, did not make any new allegations against the president. There are other women who are saying the same exact thing. And Trump right now, as we said, denied all the allegations, and the White House has said its official position is that all the women were lying. Now, a White House spokesman was out there saying these false claims, totally disputed in most cases by eyewitness accounts, were addressed at length during last year's campaign, and the American people voiced their judgment by delivering a decisive victory. But once again, as we know, the cabal, they're not going to give up. They're going to push everything they have. And if this doesn't work, where they're trying to push Trump out, they're going to resort to physical, to cyber attacks, to any type of an event to distract what has been happening here and to regain their power. Now, out in Ukraine, we see Russian trains are going to bypass Ukraine starting December 11th. And all the Russian trains that were heading for the country's southern regions had to run through Ukraine's Lugansk region. Well, now they're going to be going around Ukraine, and it looks like Russia is bypassing Ukraine. Remember, the cabal went into Ukraine to control a strategic location, to have a Black Sea port, to control Crimea, to control the gas pipelines that feed into Europe, and to control the coal industry in the southeastern area of Ukraine. All of it did not work. And we see right now that Russia is saying, listen, we're not going to have anything to do with Ukraine. We're going to reroute everything. And it looks like this is exactly what is happening right now. And once again, they were trying to start a war in this area. We had Graham, we had McCain out there, and they said this was the year of the offensive, but it looks like that has fallen apart. And everything that the cabal, the neocons have been trying to do, well, it has been falling apart very, very quickly right now, and they have nothing where they can push any type of an event. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to try, doesn't mean they don't have something working in the wings, because I do believe they do. We see Russia and China right now, they have a joint air defense drill. It's kicking off in Beijing. It's called Aerospace Security 2017, and it has started today. And what they're doing is they're bolstering cooperation between the two countries, armies, and secure a strategic balance of forces in the Pacific Rim. The main task of the exercise is to work out joint planning of combat operations when organizing an air missile defense operation and mutual fire support, as well as responding to sporadic and ballistic and cruise missile strikes over the two countries' territories. So they're preparing for anything right now because they know that the cabal could start an event any moment. And you can see over the many years, they've been trying to push a war for quite a while. Now, going back to the situation in Jerusalem with Israel, Trump, and what he said, there were individuals out there saying that, well, the Russian Foreign Ministry already recognized Jerusalem as the Israeli capital. Not necessarily true. Back in April of 2017, the Russian Foreign Ministry came out and they said, listen, we want a peace agreement between Israel and Palestine. And they said if there is a peace agreement and all issues are resolved, we might then recognize the east part of Jerusalem, the capital of Palestine, and the west part of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And they're saying that besides everything being worked out, right now they recognize absolutely nothing. And this is exactly what is happening. But I noticed that this story then was taken and morphed into that Russia has now recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which is really not true. And we see at this point that everything that has been done in the past where they wanted this two-state type of situation where the Palestinians were going to have, the eastern part of Jerusalem, the Israelis were going to have the western part of Jerusalem, and they were going to try to work out peace deals. It looks like this is not working out with the U.S. Now, we need to remember something very important here. Israel wanted this for a very long time, and the United States was using this as leverage over the many, many years. Now, we know the Senate, the House, they voted on this, and they said, yes, Jerusalem is the capital. Now, Trump finally came out and said, yes, this is the capital of Israel. Now, of course, Russia and many other countries are out there saying that this is a terrible thing. This should have never been done. It's not in accordance with international law, which it really isn't. And the reason why, and I think this is why Trump has done this, is to call everyone on their bluffing, where they're saying if this was done, we would work out a peace deal. Because as soon as this happened, what happened? He said, okay, the Saudis need to lift the blockade in Yemen. We need people to come to the peace negotiation table, and we need to talk about peace. Now, I think he knew at this point that they weren't going to discuss peace. This was never going to happen. And I think the plan was to get the United States out of this and have everything pivot to Russia and China to handle the situation. And it looks like this is exactly what is happening. Think about it. Russia stepped in Syria, handled the situation, got rid of the Islamic State. Russia was always seeking peace in the Middle East. And now other countries are looking at this saying, you know something, we need to go towards Russia for peace. And Putin has said that any decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital is counterproductive and destabilizing. We consider counterproductive any moves that preempt the result of negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Putin added that Russia will urge compliance with the UN Security Council resolutions, which state that the final legal status of Jerusalem must be agreed on by both sides as part of their legal settlement of the decades-long standoff. And he's absolutely right. And whatever the U.S. says, really at this point doesn't hold any type of weight. And we see countries, and if you want to get the Arab nations working together, this is one way of doing it. And it looks like this is exactly what's happening, because we see Egypt, Russia, Syria, Libya, Palestine, and many other countries. They're all working together, saying that, yeah, this is not going to happen. And we can see that everyone is turning towards Russia. We see Egypt, Turkey talking with Putin. We see al-Sisi talking with Putin, and we see everything right now is going to be worked through Russia. And at the same time, this will give the excuse of moving away from the petrodollar, because now all these countries do have an excuse of saying, you know something, we're not going to deal with the U.S. anymore because of what has been done. We're going to be looking towards Russia. We'll be looking towards China. And this was really all part of the plan. And we see right now that what Israel thought was happening, what the cabal thought was happening, is completely different than what is really going to happen right now. And we're already starting to see this take shape. We're already starting to see that these countries right now are starting to pivot away. And especially Palestine right now, they are meeting with Egypt, meeting with Russia, and not meeting with the U.S. at all. We see that Russia Defense Ministry has compared the operation against the Islamic State carried out by the U.S.-led coalition and the Syrian army. And they're saying that, wow, the U.S.-led coalition destroyed Syrian cities, civilians. They did unauthorized carpet bombing and destroyed the complete infrastructure of the country, compared to Russia and Syria, where they targeted the Islamic State only and hit them. Yes, there was collateral damage on certain places, but the extent of the damage of the U.S.-led coalition, completely different. And they're saying from their studies and from everything they looked at, this wasn't about hitting the Islamic State. It was about destroying the infrastructure of Syria. And this is why Obama took away from the Pentagon the ability to choose targets, because the cabal wanted to destroy the infrastructure of Syria. That was their goal, to shut down Assad and to make the Islamic State, and of course the U.S. Air Force, the coalition Air Force, was used as the Islamic State Air Force to continually push them towards Damascus and eventually get rid of Assad. Now we see that Putin is ordering the withdrawal of Russian troops, saying that, listen, the mission is complete. Yes, there's still some pockets, but there's no reason for Russian troops to still be in Syria. Now, why is he doing this? He's sitting down with Assad saying, yes, let's remove some of the troops, because I believe what he's trying to do is he's trying to show the world, listen, we were invited in, we completed our mission, we're now leaving. Compared to the United States, the cabal, where they came into Syria uninvited, they invaded a country, and when asked to leave, they are not. Think about what's happening right now. But under the umbrella of the corporate media, which they're not reporting, is that troops are being removed from Syria. Very slowly, but again, the cabal doesn't want this to happen. The cabal is trying to push their goal of trying to keep a hold on Syria, but this is not going to work. Now, what the cabal has been doing in the Middle East to keep their system alive, remember, they gain wealth from their system, having the petrodollar. It does not, translate into spreading the wealth into the middle class, the poor, and everyone else here in America and around the world. It only goes to the top 1%. It's their system. Well, they spent $4.4 trillion to keep their system alive by having these wars in the Middle East. So you were paying, I was paying, you were paying a lot of money to keep them wealthy, to keep the central banks in business. This is what has been going on for years. This is what they don't want you to know. And we can see with this new audit of the Pentagon, if this actually really does start and they start doing this, we're going to find out so many different things. It's going to make people's heads spin. This is the biggest fear of the cabal, the truth. This is why they need to control the corporate media. This is why they need to put out the propaganda stories. This is why they leave important information out, important stories out, because they don't want you to know all about that. They just want you to know that we're fighting for freedom, democracy, which is completely fake, phony, and false right off the bat. They're fighting for their wealth, their system, not for freedom and democracy. We see right now the cabal is out there, the corporate media is out there saying that, listen, the 2018 midterm elections, they are bracing for another wave of cyber attacks that will disrupt the election system. Now, once again, there were no cyber attacks on the election system. They're using a fake story to make everyone believe there's going to be another round of cyber attacks in 2018. Why are they doing this? Because if they don't keep the individuals they need in office, how are they going to explain this? They need to come up with some type of propaganda stunt, and that is cyber attacks. And they're saying that these cyber attacks most likely will be a lot worse than they were during the elections. And actually, they might spread to the financial systems. They might hit the power infrastructure. And they're really building this up to make it seem like something big is about to happen. We see out in Times Square right now, there was this individual. He was 27 years old. He is 27 years old. And he had a pipe bomb strapped around him. And he basically exploded himself in the Port Authority bus terminal. And of course, people are saying this is part of the Islamic State. He's saying he did this for revenge because the United States has been bombing his countries. He was injured, and I think 2 or 3 others might have been injured. And I think what happened here was this was supposed to be a false flag, and it was supposed to be much larger than it really was. And I think it went south. And we see right now that this is being considered a terrorist attack. And I think this is just the beginning of what the cabal is trying to do. Remember, it's very difficult at this point because they don't have control as they once did, where they can control everything. And before their false flag events, they went a lot smoother. Now they're becoming worse and worse as time goes on. And as we can see, the corporate media and everyone else is having a very difficult time trying to figure out what is really going on here. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to lead up to the main event, and they're going to continually push this until the very end, because as we can see, they're going to fire everything they have to try to stay in power. And this is just the beginning. We're going to see a lot more of these physical attacks. It's going to lead into a cyber attack. We're going to see the corporate media go crazy trying to remove Trump. They're going to do whatever they possibly can to shut this down so they can regain control. And if they can't get Trump out of office, that they can't push him out, they can't push those individuals that are switching everything over away from the central bank, away from their system, they're going to hit them with everything they have, and eventually they're going to move to the main event. And we're getting closer and closer to that, because as you can see, things are breaking down very, very rapidly for them. They have nothing left. They lost the Middle East. These countries in the Middle East are moving away from the dollar system, which is not going to end well, because it's going to hurt the people of America, because we have to go through this transition. And those people that are sleeping, those people who are not awake, well, they're going to have a very difficult time through this, because they're not going to understand what has been happening, why this is happening, and what all of a sudden happened. And I discussed this before, that, going through this, and you're holding just dollars, and the dollar loses value as the petrodollar is no longer used, it's going to be a complete disaster for those people who are not prepared. And those people who are sleeping, it's going to be very difficult. And as we've been watching this and tracking all of this, we can see over time how everything has been breaking down and how the economy has declined rapidly. Yes, you have your illusionary numbers. You can see how the Middle East didn't go the way they wanted it to go, where they were going to go into Syria, then Iran. They were going to go into North Korea. They had many, many plans. It's all falling apart right in front of us. And as it continually falls apart, it's going to get worse and worse. And before you know it, we're going to be in this transition where countries are no longer going to be using the petrodollar, which means these dollars are going to head back to the United States. Remember, All these dollars have been pushed out to other areas, out into the stock market, to the real estate market, to other countries. And those countries that don't want to hold it in reserves, well, they're going to switch to the petro yuan, maybe to cryptocurrency. They'll no longer use the dollar. Those will come back here. We will see inflation. When we see inflation start to tick up, it'll happen very slowly and it'll start gaining ground. You'll know right away that things are starting to rapidly fall apart. They're going to try to cover it up. They're going to pretend that it's not happening. They're going to try to manipulate it, but you'll see it in the stores. All of a sudden, milk will be $6, $7. All the fresh products will go up in price because the value of the dollar is decreasing. This is a sure sign that something is happening. The gold prices, the manipulation will start to break, and you'll see gold start to creep up. And it will be almost like the cryptocurrencies. All of this are different signs to let you know that we're headed in that direction. And we're going to see this coming very soon because we can see the whole thing is starting to break down. And if you haven't gotten prepared, you need to get ready now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.